Azazel showing up in the MCU might not have been at the top of anyone's list a few years ago, but now, with Avengers Doomsday already confirming a bunch of returning characters from the older X-Men movies, his chances suddenly don't seem that far-fetched. Because the multiverse is wide open, and Marvel's clearly not afraid to pull from past franchises, there's a real shot that Azazel could find his way into the current MCU. And if that happens, it could shake things up in a way that feels fresh, unexpected, and even a little dangerous. First, let's talk about the basics. Azazel is a character from Marvel Comics with a demonic look, teleportation powers, and deep ties to the mutant world. Most notably, he's Nightcrawler's father, something that was hinted at in X-Men First Class but never really explored further. Even though he didn't get much screen time in the Fox films, the little we did see hinted at how powerful and menacing he could be. That red skin, that teleportation ability, and that silent, lethal demeanor, it all adds up to someone who could bring a lot to the table if given more room. Now, when it comes to Avengers Doomsday, the rumors suggest it's going to feature multiple timelines and variants, not just of heroes, but villains too. That opens the door for characters like Azazel to reappear, especially if the movie is pulling in a wide roster of mutants, former villains, and alternate versions of classic characters. And let's be honest, if you're already bringing in people like Ian McKellen's Magneto, it makes sense to include others from that mutant era, especially those with unexplored potential. If Azazel is included, Marvel could take a couple of interesting routes. One of the smartest moves might be to pull inspiration from the comic storyline, The Draco. It's a controversial arc in Uncanny X-Men, where Azazel is revealed to be the leader of a race of demonic mutants called the Neyaphem. His goal? To open a portal between dimensions and bring his army to Earth. It's a wild story, sure, but it gives Azazel a much bigger role than just being Nightcrawler's dad or an X-Men side villain. It makes him a serious threat, one with the power to turn the tide in a multiversal war. And that actually fits really well into what Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars are building toward. Because Doctor Doom is involved, and it looks like they will be, then the Avengers and other multiversal heroes are going to need all the help they can get. Azazel's dimension hopping and teleportation powers would be incredibly useful in this kind of story. He could act as a bridge between worlds, a guide through hellish realities, or even a reluctant ally who knows more than he's letting on. So, it's not hard to imagine a version of Azazel who isn't just a villain, but more of an anti-hero or morally gray figure, someone who isn't fighting for the Avengers because he believes in their cause, but because he has his own reasons. Maybe Doom's rise threatens his realm, or perhaps there's a greater evil looming behind the scenes that forces even someone like Azazel to get involved. That's where things get really interesting when characters like him are forced into uneasy alliances. And if the MCU wants to play with the idea of variants, which they clearly do, then it wouldn't be surprising to see multiple versions of Azazel show up. One could be the older, more threatening version from the First Class-inspired universe. But what if there's also a younger Azazel? Maybe a version from a reality where he's still on the fence about his loyalties, or one who hasn't yet been twisted by centuries of war. That kind of character could be compelling, especially if the story plays with the idea of legacy, redemption, or identity themes the MCU has been exploring more and more lately. It's also worth asking, who could actually play Azazel this time around? Because if they go the variant route, it opens the door to casting someone new, someone who can bring a fresh take to the character while keeping that dangerous charm intact. Ideally, you'd want someone who has that eerie intensity, but also some emotional depth. An actor like Dan Stevens could do something fascinating with the role, especially if it's a younger variant. He's got range, he can be menacing when needed, and he's proven he can handle weird supernatural material thanks to Legion. Or if Marvel wanted to go bolder, they could look at someone like Richard Armitage, who's already got the physicality and the voice to play a character like Azazel with a mix of gravitas and threat. And although Azazel doesn't talk much in the Fox films, the MCU version could be far more articulate, especially if he's trying to convince others to trust him or if he's delivering cold, brutal truths about the multiverse and what's really coming. Now, when it comes to how Azazel could actually help the Avengers, that part might surprise people because it's easy to think of him as strictly a villain, but his powers make him a strategic asset. Imagine the Avengers needing to infiltrate a collapsing reality or track a variant of Doctor Doom who's hiding in some dimension filled with ancient horrors. Who better to guide them than someone who's been through hell, literally? Azazel could act as a reluctant ally, teleporting the team through dangerous realms, delivering cryptic warnings, and occasionally letting his darker instincts take over when violence becomes necessary. There's even a chance that Marvel could weave in more emotional storytelling through him. If Nightcrawler is introduced, which seems likely with the mutants entering the MCU, then having his father involved could create some strong drama. Azazel might not be seeking redemption, but the presence of a son who represents a very different kind of mutant, one driven by hope and faith, could force him to confront parts of himself he'd rather ignore. It adds layers to the character and makes any sacrifice, betrayal, or alliance feel more earned. And of course, there's always the Doctor Doom connection. As we know, Avengers Doomsday is building toward Doom being the next major threat. It's possible that Azazel knows him not just by reputation, but through past encounters in alternate universes or even mystical circles. Because Doom isn't just a tech genius, he's also dabbled in magic and dark realms, which puts him in Azazel's wheelhouse. That could lead to some fascinating tension, especially if Azazel knows how dangerous Doom can become when he gains access to godlike power. It also makes you wonder, what if Azazel, in some variant form, becomes the unexpected key to stopping Doom? Maybe not in a heroic, selfless way, but more in a you can't rule if there's no multiverse left kind of way. It fit his character perfectly. Selfish, cunning, but ultimately useful when the stakes are high enough. So to sum it up, Azazel isn't just some forgotten character from First Class. He's a powerful wild card who could absolutely find a new life in the MCU, especially with all the variant hopping and multiversal chaos happening now. By pulling from darker comic arcs like the Draco, exploring variants including a younger or morally ambiguous version, and casting someone with real presence, Marvel could bring Azazel into the fold in a way that feels exciting and essential. And whether he's guiding heroes through the fire or dragging them deeper into it, one thing's for sure: he's the kind of unpredictable presence that the multiverse saga desperately needs. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.